you should work on this and this, and we just went from there. And then, like, I don't know, 6 months later, I'm like, dude, like 100 people just downloaded that episode we published. Who are these people?
Yeah.
And it's just grown from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff do you guys dive into, just for the audience? So
What the fuck?
Our main topic is ancient, really ancient civilizations. I mean, you could say lost civilizations, but we're both have been in construction. We have done a lot of building. We run heavy machinery. So we're very interested in sort of like, how did they do this? They're moving enormous blocks. They're constructing things with precision that have alignments. If they're off from true north, it's just this tiny little fraction of a degree. And we're interested in that because we've had to lay out buildings, and we've you're going through and you're putting the pieces on, and that like most of the time on normal construction, your margin of error is more like a quarter of an inch, not like like tiny amounts like they've done with enormous blocks.
Right.
So it's
on 13-acre building.
Yeah, right. And we've planted vineyards, or orchards where we get the surveying equipment and we lay out where all the trees are going to go, and we're trying to make straight lines.
Yep.
And then we're standing up looking at it, and we're like, the Great Pyramid is like 10 of these.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So that's really like one of our favorite things. And going to Egypt, it's like that. We're looking at it from a construction standpoint. Like, I think people of any profession kind of do this.
Yep.
No matter what your profession is, if you see a job that was done by somebody in your profession, you kind of look at it and you're like, I wonder how they did this part.
Yeah.
You're interested in it. So we are as well.
Yeah. And you guys are going back to Egypt in February. You're taking a tour of people out there in February again?
Right. We're with Ben. Shout out to Ben. He's fun to work with. He's awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, we're actually doing 2 tours like back to back.
Nice.
It's gonna be
nice.
Yeah,
it's fun. Yeah, the first one sold out, I guess, right?
Yeah, sold out. And then, we were intending to go to Baltimore, but that kind of fell through because of world events.
Yeah.
So we just decided to do a second tour instead of Egypt. Man, God, I really want to go see Baltimore.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I'm very upset.
Yeah. Gotcha. And so, what other stuff do you guys kind of cover on the show? I mean, I saw you got an 11-part series on the path of the pole. I want to talk a little bit about the pole.
We talk a lot about geology. We talk about physics,
cosmology.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. You guys, just from listening to you, and I know just from talking to you just this morning, you guys are both very well educated and very bright. But your knowledge of physics and everything else comes from where did you guys?
Self-taught. Yeah. Which means like we're mostly wrong all the time, especially with physics.
Totally fine with being wrong. It's not a problem.
The thing is maintain the curiosity, explore, and then also sort of we have this. The philosophy on our show is like the certificate of ignorance. In other words, like admit that in general we're still the human race in general is still figuring things out, trying to explore the universe around us and what is going on. And so there's this tendency, though, especially with modern science, to sort of act like we kind of got most of it.
100%.
Yeah, we got it figured out. There's some details around the edges that maybe we don't understand yet, but pretty much we understand what's going on. And I completely disagree.
Completely agree.
And I think that, you find out when you read, like whether it's, some papers in archaeology or in physics, or you listen to these guys, they're like, no, we kind of don't really have it nailed down yet. Yeah.
Right.
So we call that the certificate of ignorance. You got to write it yourself.
Yep.
And you put it up on your wall, and you just remind yourself every day, we don't know what's going on yet.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and at every point throughout history, we've kind of thought that we've had everything figured out, like in terms of like, and we've always been like, oh, we're at the pinnacle, we're at the peak, we know everything, and it's like, 50 years later, 10 years later, sometimes 1 year later, it's like, we didn't really quite get that, and then looking back upon our past, upon our history, it's like, wow, we really knew nothing, and future versions of us are going to say the same thing about us.
Exactly.
We have a joking phrase about this. There's a manual for how the universe works, and it's always the final edition.
It's updated every day.
It's always updated,
but it's the final. People treat it like it's the final edition.
Right. Love it. Yeah, it's so true, and it just speaks to the importance of just curiosity and just just continuing to ask the question. And I know you guys probably get a lot of it, and just me from my first bunch of 7 episodes is like I get a lot of it. Like people know that that's not right. We know the answer to that, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, do we? You know, we thought Clovis first, you know.
Sure.
You know, for everything. I mean, archaeology, the mainstream is just constantly rewriting that story of human history every day because we learn something new, and it's like it's so hard to change the paradigm, or not even change the paradigm, but just explore new possibilities and alternatives because people are so dogmatic and just so like, you know, no, this is the way, this is the answer, this is the truth, and it's like, you know, let's just keep an open mind. Like, can we just like explore like the question? And I love that about your guys' podcast, and I think that's why you guys are, you know, so popular and such. You have such a successful podcast, is because you guys just explore the question. You know, it's like open-minded exploration of the truth.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the world becomes so much more interesting and fascinating and fun when you realize, wait a minute, we don't have this figured out, and this is a mystery. Then there's something to be discovered, and that's just a great feeling to me to pursue the discovery. Even though we also talk about this, we're not ever going to find the complete whole truth. It's probably not going to happen. We can get closer to it, but it's that process which is so fascinating and makes life worth living to me. The mystery.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's like, it's that old saying that science advances one death at a time.
Yeah, one funeral at a time.
One funeral at a time. But if people were open-minded, it wouldn't have to. You know, like
that's
right. We could advance so much faster if we kept an open mind, and it didn't take a death to, you know, to overturn some old paradigm.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
So yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to today talking through some of this stuff with you. I know we share a lot of the same interests, so I was excited that you guys were you know, willing to come on and try some baby new podcast or some, you know, some new shows.
Oh man, anytime. This is great.
Yeah,
I wish we'd have had this studio for our baby podcast. I love what you've done here, man. This is amazing.
It's awesome. Ever evolving. Evolving, for sure.
It is always evolving.
Yeah. But well, cool, man. Yeah. So let's dive into a topic. You know, where do you think is a good place to start?
Well, first let's you know, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's that open exploration. You know, it's like trying to find answers. Like, I feel like that we don't have a good explanation for. I feel like that it's important for humans to have a good agreed upon base reality. Like, and I was kind of mentioning this when at breakfast this morning, but like if we don't all have the same understanding of our past and the same and it's not, we don't have to agree upon it. That's not what I'm saying. But there's certain events that have happened throughout human history that they either happened or they didn't happen. And currently, like the younger Gyges is a great example. You know, like we're being told that no, everything's fine, nothing to see here. You know, all the megafauna went extinct because of overhunting. You know, and the sea levels all, you know, completely changed. Not all during that 1,200-year younger Gyges period, but the sea levels were dramatically changing. You know, the temperature was changing. We're finding, you know, evidence of meteor impacts. You know, and just a cataclysmic time period, and it's like nobody really understands that, you know, and nobody really like is talking about that. And so, you know, I think the Carolina Bays is another good example, you know, something that was just talked about. And it's like, you know, there's so many things out there that we just kind of that we just accept as, you know, fact or the way things are, without really asking the question and going back and exploring and diving into old theories that may or may not be true. You know, they may or may not hold any weight. They may just be you know, something before the computer, before Google Earth, that we just kind of made up and kind of go along with. I think that, you know, the pyramids as tombs.
Yes.
You know, that's like one of those old 150, 200-year-old theories. Then, you know, there's never been a pharaoh found in a pyramid. You know? It's like, well, you know, let's ask those questions. Let's explore those topics. And so for me, asking the questions and kind of exploring some topics that make people uncomfortable, who, you know, are who think that, you know, we do have the answers. We are at the pinnacle. We are at the peak of human civilization. I think it's just important that we talk about this stuff. And because I think that a base reality for a general understanding of this world that we're living in, that we're operating in, that we're trying to navigate and understand and make decisions about for not only ourselves as individuals, but as a species, I think it's important that we explore our past, and that could tell us a lot about our future. And so, asking those questions, I think, is critical. I think the UFO thing, which I want to maybe get into with you guys a little bit later, that's we ought to know if that's real.
Yeah.
Like that's something
is happening.
Yeah. We should probably as a species agree on that.
Right.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yes.
So stuff like that, I guess. That's kind of why I'm in this.
And and we definitely need to talk about that. We have another thing we joke about on our show with the UFO thing is that it's so strange that it almost doesn't look like it could be just regular aliens and nuts and bolts craft showing up.
Yeah.
So we have this idea that eventually somebody like that will show up. And they'll be like, have you guys been seeing this weird stuff too? Because we have it on our planet and we have no idea what it is either. The UFO stuff is really strange.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah, and getting stranger and getting so mainstream now.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. Like, I felt like I've been following this topic for 35 years almost. I mean, really since Bob Lazar.
Okay.
I've been into this thing for a long time, but you couldn't really talk about it with that many people, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, because people were like, yeah, it's kind of like, you mean, is it like kind of like Bigfoot,
right?
It's like, no,
but yes.
I don't know if you guys are Bigfoot people, but
sometimes Bigfoot shows up after UFO sightings, which is weird.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if they're connected.
Yeah.
But we can take it back to, because first of all, you have the bases, and so we can always talk about Egypt. That's one of our favorite subjects. We're about to go there.
Cool.
One of the main things that we've both noticed when going to Egypt, you have to realize you're just like with geology. You're looking through layers and layers and layers, except in Egypt's case, it's occupation, right? So with geology, it's time and small floods and big weather events and everything that leave sediment, cover things over, change things or whatever, or erosion, right? So it's either deposition or erosional. And in Egypt, you have the same thing, but it's people doing it. In some places, people are piling stuff on. Other places, they're taking it away. They're quarrying the old stones from the pyramids and removing it. Or in other places, they've been living in this temple for thousands of years and bringing animals and goats in there and just living in there in general and just piling up stuff.
Yep.
And then also building on them again. So something will fall down and then they'll repair it, and then it'll fall down again and they'll repair it. And so you're looking through thousands of years of layers of renovation and reuse.
Yeah, no doubt.
All the way up to the modern time.
Right.
You're walking down a path that was made 50 years ago for tourists, looking at something off to the side that's 1,000 years old, and then farther out there's something that's 4,000 years old, and in the middle of that there's something that might be 20,000 years old. We just don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So, and it's interesting in general. This is not always the case, but in general, the older stuff is using bigger stones with more difficult materials.
Yep.
And is just in general a little more anomalous.
Right.
Now the dynastics were, some of the dynastic periods, they were phenomenal architects and engineers and builders. Like, their temples are just amazing to walk through. But when you're walking through them, every surface is covered in writing, is painted. Some of the ceilings, some of the paint still remains, and they've cleaned it up, especially like in the Temple of Hathor. And it's just beautiful up there. And it's the night sky, or it's telling you there's all these symbols and everything. But every surface is got words or pictures. It's just absolutely decorated. And then the sites themselves are open. The pillars are far apart, and you can tell people are supposed to come in here and look and see and read and learn. And then you go into a pyramid, and it's like being in a machine. It's completely different. You feel like you're sneaking around in the underbelly of a city with all the machinery. Maybe you're not supposed to be in there, or it's dangerous. This is the maintenance shaft for something. The Osirian is like this as well. Like, being in the Osirian is like being in the basement of some large structure. It's right now it's full of rubble and water and everything, but if that wasn't there would be these deep pits that you could fall into easily, and you're kind of like sidling along, So it's those structures we like to look at because you start wondering, well, what is this really for? This pyramid isn't a tomb.
Right.
What is it?
What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the Osirian isn't like a temple to Osiris, but has some function other than that, then what exactly is it?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think on what do you guys think on the Great Pyramid? Like what in terms of like what it could have been? I mean, I know there's a couple theories out there with the land of Kim. There's the Chris Dunn's theory. There's potentially irrigation or water pump theory.
Right. Those all make more sense than the tomb theory. And in general, like I think we're in agreement that it's the idea that it's a large project that benefits the whole population makes more sense. So power plant, a chemical plant, or metallurgy, I don't know. But the other thing with those pyramids is that they're connected to the entire plateau in some way. There's, when you're outside the pyramid itself, there's tiling, and then under the tiling are channels. We were talking about this the other day. And
so the pyramid complex there's a lot more than just the pyramid and the tunnels inside of it, but they are connected to other. They look like drains. It's like, so you have the grounds around the pyramid have humongous limestone piles that could be as big as this floor, and underneath them in many places are granite stones that have a trough cut in them that's running along, and they'll empty out into these granite bowls.
Right.
So there was something going on under the ground, and this was cool. The last
clearly functional for some.
Yes, there is a function going on, and who knows how they might be connected to other chambers in the pyramid. We don't know.
Right.
They're finding evidence of more chambers and internal structures in that pyramid.
Right. Because of the renovation and reuse, it's like, well, what was the original function of versus what everything looks like today?
Yeah.
One of the pyramid complexes we went to, I can't remember which one it is, but the causeway that goes all the way up has one of those troughs run down the center of it all the way down to, I think, some spring or so. I don't remember.
Is that Abu Sir or Abu Ghurab?
Something like that. Yeah, one of those.
Maybe.
I can't remember. I'm bad with the names, but it's
both of those have the under the channels running around. And Yusuf will talk about how we're told this is like a sewage system, but the whole thing ends up in a relatively small granite bowl, and you're like, no, that's not how sewage works.
Right.
Yeah. But there was a guy that was with us on the last tour. We became fast friends. He's a great guy, but he farms. And we were talking about like, what are some of the other things besides a power plant and some of these other ideas that have come about that would be worth it for society to invest this much labor and time and effort into constructing? What else? And he was just like, they could be making fertilizer. So it would be like a chemical processing plant, which I think Yusuf has even talked about, like the different. I don't know. There's. I think that's
the land of Kim
idea.
also talks about this. Yeah. I mean, the idea that they were doing some kind of chemical process.
Yeah.
Right.
Alchemy.
Right. Yeah. So what about in terms of the date? In terms of the because there's good arguments on both sides. I mean, from like on the celestial side, and like in terms of when the big pyramids were built.
Yeah.
And but then there's some carbon dating, that all seems to conveniently date back to when the 2500 BC time period. So what's your guys' thoughts on the dates of those structures? And then I'll ask you about the Sphinx, which I think everybody agrees is significantly
It's old. Yeah. I haven't landed on anything with it. I would not be surprised if some of the larger pyramids or at least something was there a long time ago. Because again, we're talking about people would go and add on to stuff and then do it again. And like the Great Pyramid could be, at least some of it may be very old. But one of the things with the carbon dates, like, is it the bent pyramid that has the wood?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. But when you're looking at that wood, you see the cedar in there. You're wondering, like,
Cedars of Lebanon.
Is that original, or not?
Right.
Because people did come in here and explore these things, and in some cases, like with this bent pyramid, you had to build structures to get up to the top of a huge chamber to get into a little tiny doorway to get to the next part. Right. So I don't know. And then the wood is in these there's like multiple different false floors,
Right.
and the wood is down in there, and so you can believe that people are putting those in to lift things out
Yeah.
from beneath these false floors.
Yeah.
So I don't know how old they are.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the paint that Howard Weiss found that
Oh, in the Great Pyramid,
Great
in the
Pyramid.
relieving chambers. Yeah.
why won't they carbon date that
Right.
and show us all that it comes from that period?
Well, because they know.
Yeah, exactly. They already know. There's no need to do science.
There's no need to do that test because we already know what it is.
Yeah. Until they do it, people are going to ask that question. It's
Yeah.
It's a good. I mean, it's a reasonable question.
It is a reasonable question. And the fact that they got so angry that some people took some samples out of there is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Zahi was basically saying these guys claim that the pyramid is 25,000 years old or whatever. I'm like, they didn't say that.
Nobody said that.
Yeah. I think you're afraid that it will be that old, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe he knows it. Maybe he already knows.
Maybe he knows, yes, because he knows Zahi's connection to the ARE and just that whole situation is very strange.
Yeah. Right.
I remember when I first saw the internal structure of a diagram of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid, I thought, it looks like the King's Chamber and this whole thing was like built first. And then somebody came and,
Put a triangle over top of it.
put a giant triangle on it to protect it.
Yeah.
I just wondered about that. Like maybe there was like a sacred mound or something like that, and people had built maybe an observatory there at some point in the past, and then later it just, people keep coming back and adding on to it.
This is a
it's
pretty
not
good,
unheard of.
This is a pretty good diagram, and notice the mound. So the ground
Yes.
level beneath the pyramid.
Right.
This is the other thing. As a construction guy, you come
That's
in
terrible.
you build a building. You flatten your workspace, your surface, but they purposefully left this mound in there and had to build the layers of the layers of stone around that.
They just
Why
didn't
would
want
you
the
do-
pyramid sliding around.
Yeah, you don't want it. You want it plugged in. You don't want it sliding around. But that's the thing is like, why would you do that and make the job so much harder?
Yeah.
But is it one of the quote unquote primordial mountains? This is the question. Is that something much older?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's level on the outsides. It's level to within like some ridiculous
Yes.
amount.
They flattened the plateau.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is like you imagine the builders standing there and they're like, so let's just flatten all of that,
Yeah.
cut off all the rock over there and take it over here and make tiles and fill in those holes with the rest of it
Right.
and make it all flat.
Right.
And then we'll build some, but leave a little mound right there because we need to put a big pyramid right there.
Yeah. I was doing I did a podcast with Ralph Ellis, who a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the bent pyramid and the red pyramid, and he did this analysis of it back in the 90s, and it was like basically if you take the bent pyramid and you take the top part of the bent pyramid, so the top half, like after the bend,
Yes.
it's a perfect Pythagorean triangle. It's like a 20, 21, 29 Pythagorean triangle. And if you look at the red pyramid, that is also a 20, 21, 29 Pythagorean triangle. And if you extend the bent pyramid all the way out to where it would be if it wasn't bent,
Yeah.
it's the exact same dimensions as the red pyramid. So that was
That
pretty,
is interesting.
that was
yeah.
pretty crazy. Yeah, I haven't released that one yet. It'll probably be out before this comes out. But he did some really incredible work on it in the 90s, and he's like, I don't know why nobody's talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, this was like 30 years ago, and it's
Wow.
so I mean, basically the reason for the audience that's so incredible is that Pythagoras he was like 500 BC or 450
Yeah.
BC, and we credit the Greeks for everything,
Right.
but the Egyptians were incredible, and they very likely had, almost certainly had, knowledge of advanced geometry.
Absolutely.
A couple of thousand years at least before we give them credit for it.
Yeah.
And so, you see that in the pyramid, you see it in the vases potentially. That you see a lot of that geometry now. I know there was a pretty good debunking video coming out that debunked some of the mathematics in the vases actually. So that part of that for me is, I don't know. We got to do more. We got to do more research. We got to really dive into that a bit more to figure out, it seems way too coincidental to have all of that math, with the radial transversal pattern and the pi and phi all over those things. Like, seems like too much of a coincidence to have all that stuff in there. You know? But either way, the Egyptians knew. They were very. I think it's beyond a shadow of a doubt now. They had knowledge of advanced geometry, at least at points in their history. And so, for mainstream academics and Egyptologists today, just to completely ignore that and to credit the Greeks for the advent of essentially what we know about of geometry today is kind of. That doesn't make much sense to me, and that and it's like one of those things that it's one of those things that for this podcast I have to talk about some of that stuff and to get it out there into the public more.
Yeah.
To be like, well, why do we learn this in school if the Egyptians were doing this stuff like thousands of years before it was supposedly invented by Pythagoras?
Right.
Who coincidentally had just come back from a trip to Egypt.
Where these Greek thinkers went to Egypt to learn. They come back and they're like, hey, I got some new math. People are like, wow, you just invented that. It's amazing.
Right. It's incredible. God, you're so smart.
We were also taught really about this stuff you're talking about. The bent pyramid is great, and we were taught that the bent pyramid was a mistake. They didn't realize, these morons back there that were building these pyramids that it was going to be too steep and it would collapse upon itself. So then they were like, let's bend it. But it's actually, that pyramid is amazing. If you look at all the pyramids in Egypt, most of them are missing their casing stones. Some of them have a few remnants of casing stones that were buried. A lot of the casing stones around the bases of some of them still remain because the quarrying of the casing stones piled up and buried the bottom casing stones, so they're still preserved. The bent pyramid has the most. And the reason, what we've been told, the reason for that is that they actually all are cut to tilt inward towards the body of the pyramid. So you can't just go in there and break one loose and slowly slide it out. You have to slide it uphill to get it out.
Okay.
And so you can tell that they did quarry a lot of the stones, the casing stones off that pyramid, but they just gave up. It was too much work.
So it has. I'll back up here. It has most of its casing stones still on it,
and they are enormous and beautiful. It's amazing. To see, it would have been such an
look
amazing
at the line.
thing.
This is the reason that this picture is tilted is because I'm trying to get that edge line. Like, look how amazing it is. And then you can see it's difficult with photographs, but you can see that people are standing underneath. But the casing stones are sloped inward, like a little bit down
towards the body of the pyramid.
Here, like, see this? This is this makes them very difficult to remove. And then there's this interesting look how they've been degrading here. But there's Kyle looking up and taking the photo of the underside.
I'm standing. I could be out of the rain if it ever rained there. Those things are sticking way out.
The casing stones are far more substantial than a lot of the core masonry. They're very enormous.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Beautifully done. And I mean, this is engineering and execution on just an amazing scale.
Look at that line.
Wow. And what's the angle there? Is it like?
I don't know.
Oh man,
here you go. I took this. I'm standing.
Dude.
I took the picture standing on the archaeologists have dug down and found the corner of the socle, the bedrock platform that the pyramid was on. So I'm standing right at the corner of where the corner casing stone would have been, looking up at the corner.
Wow. So that's not even the peak.
You're looking at
the top is where it bends.
We're looking at the bend.
That's crazy.
And what's interesting is you get in this pyramid and you climb all around. You go down the descending passageway. You get into it and you climb way up this scaffolding to get to the top of a big chamber, and you get in some other tunnels. And all of that is happening far below the bend. Because in the top, all the way up at the top, there's another shaft that goes out and goes up. And I climbed out that all the way up that thing. I wasn't supposed to. It was totally legal. Be quiet. I climbed all the way up and looked out, and there's a little tiny square opening on the outside of this pyramid, and it's just below the edge of the bend.
Wow.
So all that climbing we did, and all the climbing I did up this shaft, and I'm still haven't gotten up into the top part of the pyramid yet. So this is the other thing about these structures, and even the Great Pyramid has this issue, is most of the stuff that's in them is actually below ground surface. You know, and there's a few things up in the body of the pyramid, but most of the pyramid is a complete unknown, and just assumed to be nothing but core masonry, rough core masonry. You know, you'll hear or read these people like, well, they just would sort of, they put rough stones in there, fill it with sand. They didn't care. They're just trying to fill up space. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know. Look at how, you know, I find that hard to believe.
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, amazing. Any other thoughts on pyramids, you know, before we move? I mean, any big picture overview, revelation for you guys? I mean, you've been there several times. You've seen these things, but
I think that I was a lot more into going into these specific ideas in the beginning that were not, you know, once you find out, oh, it's not a tomb, or maybe it's not a tomb.
Yeah.
Really diving into these other ideas about what it might be was kind of, you know, I get hooked on that. But now after having been in so many, I have no idea what these things are.
I have become convinced that we have no freaking clue.
Our mindset is so far off from whatever the mindset was that was setting out to do these building projects. I can't fathom it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, especially after being inside. You just, this doesn't make sense. For example, the antechamber to the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid is one of the most confusing rooms.
Yeah.
It is so strange. The granite, because by the time you're in there, the whole tunnel has turned to granite.
Is it Grand Gallery or
Past the Grand Gallery?
Okay.
And leading to the King's Chamber.
You're going into the King's Chamber. There's this tiny little antechamber.
Yep.
And the granite in there there's round parts. They call it wainscoting. There's shelves up high. There's nubs sticking out somewhere. There's notches and just all this
It's
stuff
like standing in a machine with pieces missing.
It is the strangest thing.
But it looks like it was intentional.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
It's absolutely intentional.
And the other thing I would point out about the King's Chamber is that it's basically, you know, the boxes in the Serapeum.
Yeah.
This is just a tunnel leading you into the inside of a box.
The
That's
King's
what it
Chamber
is.
is a box.
It's a giant granite box. It's a multi-piece box with a box inside it.
Right. There's another one in the underneath the step pyramid, but you walk around the outside of it and you see, like, you recognize, you're like, oh, this is a miniature King's Chamber. It's built with long, narrow pieces of granite that they've sort of stacked up to make this multi-piece box. And it's it's the same kind of shape. And you're like, oh yeah, if I was very small and inside this thing, it would be like being in the King's Chamber. It's the same. It's so they're building a huge box. And then putting a single piece box inside that.
Right. Yeah,
It's
that's
just
crazy.
wild.
And the dimensions on the King's Chamber, again, I just learned this, that was 10 by 20 royal cubits.
Okay.
Yeah, so 10 by 20 royal cubits, which is like 52.4 centimeters is a royal cubit. And you have 7 hands in a cubit, and you have 4 fingers in a hand. And so that tells you that if you do the math, then every finger is 18.714 millimeters. And what we're just finding now on the vases is that the red granite super precision vases were all made using that 18.714 finger
measurement
system.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
The old finger system.
The old finger
That's
system.
a good one.
Yeah.
We later moved on to feet.
Right.
Fingers are
Toda, bro, the legend. What's up, my man?
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's
really cool.
Can you just tell me?
What's up, legend?
Obviously, you've had a lot of time to.
Oh, we're doing well, man. Thanks for being here, buddy.
I'm wondering. You say the precision red granite one. So you think that the precision level is connected to the stone type?
I do. Yeah. It seems very clear that the red granite are the most accurate of the vases, and so I started seeing vases after I got there. Yeah, I love vases. My whole life, but I think vases so much more sophisticated. But yeah, the red granite ones are, and I think it's probably the same. You guys tell me, but from the statues that you see, like in
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thanks, man.
Luxor has some beautiful statues in it.
Yeah. The red granite ones, I know they've done some super precise work in that as well. It's like as one granite, basically. But yeah, so Adam Young has the OG vase that's made out of that as one granite, and then I have the two spinner vases and the one thin wall vase that's made out of the same material as Adam's OG base. You see that precision in those very, very clearly. You see it in a handful of other ones. Maybe not quite to the exact same level as you see in the red granite, but close, actually, in maybe 3 or 4 other ones. But then after that, there's a drop-off as it relates to precision. But, then you kind of have to ask yourself, well, was this done on purpose? Like, were they going for a perfect circle? Because on a lot of them, underneath the handles, it's a smaller diameter than it is front to back. So if you're saying the handles are left and right, then that diameter from the width of the thing is thinner on almost all of them than the front and back is. So it's like, well, it wasn't turned on a lathe, man, unless it was a wobbly lathe. And they weren't going for a circle. If you consistently see the same thing, like with the symmetry being different, then you consistently, just another example, you consistently see the handles being closer on one side than the other. And all these debunker people are saying like, oh, they didn't know what they were doing, they're not precise, they're not accurate, like because the handles aren't completely opposite of each other. That's not what they were going for. Like, it's clearly not what they were going for, because it's every one of the ones that I have offset handles. Even the most precise ones have offset handles, so it's absolutely not what the makers of these things were going for, to have them opposite each other.
Wow. There's like an intentional deviation from like symmetry in that regard. It's like, I mean, I have to admit, as an artist, I mean, I've made some sculptures and stuff like that. Nothing amazing, but I love working with wood, and I love the sort of organic feel of the handmade sculpture, as opposed to like using, saws and precision, getting these perfect cuts and everything. I mean, it's cool, but there's something about that organic look of being hand carved that's beautiful to me.
Yeah.
So that could be an explanation, but still, I mean, it's hard to imagine making one of these things. I mean, I almost want to try it, except I may not have time left in my life.
Yeah, you don't have 85 years left to make one of them. Yeah.
I started too late.
Right. Yeah, they would take a ridiculous amount of time to make.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. And some of them you just can't make by hand. I mean, some of them are just too precise to make by hand. It's just impossible. Like, it doesn't matter how many lifetimes you have, you're not getting, because you wouldn't have had the instruments necessary to measure down to, a fraction of a millimeter, a hundredth of them, with 4/1000ths of an inch. You need instrumentation. You can't just eyeball that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You can't just see that. That has to be, some of them couldn't have been made by hand. So yeah, they're interesting. I saw the video that you guys did with Ben Gerber on them. Yeah, definitely good. You guys were talking about a couple of the ones in the other room.
Yes.
It's cool.
This is Al and I walking. We're underneath the step pyramid now, going to the place where most of these vases were found.
Right.
And it's crazy, the tunnels you have to explore, and then of course the parts where the vases actually were, and there's still thousands of fragments of them all over in the sand, in the dirt, or whatever. They won't let you record, so I don't have that actual level.
Mr. Six-Pack himself.
We're in here. There's another level, and down in that level, when you're down there, there's
Mr. Abs of Steel Sour Stash has entered the chat. Just got home nights, bro. Welcome. Toad, have you seen Sour Stash's abs video? It's insane. I'll post it. I'll paste it. Oh man. What's your YouTube IG for Jones? IG for Jones, something like that. Sorry, bro. I Jones. Oops. 8-pack. 10-pack. That's fucking 10 out of 10, my friend. Not that I have those abs and I can judge. No. Chilling more lately. I Jones. Yeah, buddy. That's a goal. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I gotta find a better protein source. I don't think I'm gonna use whey protein anymore. I feel really weak, but I think I'm just because of time. But I don't think I'm gonna do whey protein. Not 6-star anymore. It's too sugary, too fatty. As Toad said, I think I need isolate. Yes. There is a protein store nearby. I gotta go in. I gotta talk to them. Cause I know, I'm concerned about fat level, sugar level, protein level. If it has creatine. Oh wow. I have ad blocker. Apparently, guys. Apparently, ad blocker it doesn't work with a lot of my friends on Twitch. I really don't need. Anyways, sweet, yeah. But I know if you want to watch on your phone, I don't have a solution for my phone or like a Twitch app on the TV. If you use a Twitch app, not the computer, I don't have a solution for that. Yeah, I do it because I don't expect you to sub. You know, I do it because I thought, because I mean, with like, I'm not the only person on Twitch that people watch. So you think that like people would use like an ad blocker for other channels? You know what I mean? I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm just saying, what do they do with other channels? I guess they do turbo. I appreciate that too. Thanks for being here. How you guys doing, man? Yo, Stash, how you doing, man? I see another hurricane coming to Florida. Fuck me, man. I'm praying for you, dude. Sad for northern Florida, but that's good to hear for you in Miami and everyone, man. It's fucked, man. Water's fucked, dude. Man, I do miss Miami though, dude. A lot. I just set up my skateboard again here. I'm probably gonna go tonight, play some basketball. I might do a basketball stream in the sun. I just got a cell phone. Cool. I just set up my Switch too. I set it up this morning. So I set up everything. My Xbox, because I hooked it up to the HDMI splitter and channel selector. It's all plugged in, all ready to go, man. I just gotta fucking do it. Thing is, I'm like looking for that pesky thing called a job and work. There's no hope. Like, I have zero hope, honestly, guys. I don't think I can find anything. I might have to do Uber Eats again, which might be fine. It's really tiring though. But you can make some pretty good money with it, man. Maybe. But yeah, I have no hope for finding a job. Like, I changed my resume today, but it's just like, it's not gonna make any difference. Even if I had all the professional society certifications, it wouldn't make any difference. Which is fine. Yeah. Seems like it, man. But it's fucked now, man. In every sector. Yeah. Oh, it's fucked. It's absolutely fucked. Like labor jobs and real jobs like your job are what matters, right? And I've done those before. I do them, willing to do them. I'd rather do Uber because then I could get like a new car. That'd be pretty sweet. But the issue is, I don't think, like, I've talked to some dealerships and they said that Uber Eats might not be a good enough thing to get a car loan accepted. Yeah, I'm in Ottawa. Oh, the car. but it's like, I need the car to get the job. And it's like, wouldn't they be sure they would sell the car at great condition to make sure that they get their money? Make sure that I'm actually working. Yeah. It is risky, man. Dude, you're fucking hitting the nail on the head. And it'll destroy the car. Yeah. And because when you're doing fucking Uber Eats, you're not driving down roads that you usually drive down. You're driving down like a combination of like random ass roads with like really shitty pavement, like the shittiest holes in the ground, and neighborhoods that order delivery because their roads are so shit that they don't want to drive down themselves. So it destroys the suspension in the car. That's what happened with my RSX. The roads shook the fucking car apart. The old rusty, it was old and rusty lines, but like it just fucking, it destroyed that car. Yeah, man. So I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. I have no idea. I have no hope. But it's fine. Like, it's fine. I'm here in Canada. I'm here at home. It's better than me being fucking in China. Let's start with that. Although I love the experience. I love the people. They're very kind. But I just didn't need to be there. You know. Dude, like I'm sure I applied at Home Depot too. I did. Like it's fucked. But it's fine. I'm doing what I want to do in my life. Well, one day, find imagine let them reapply. Yeah, this was a while ago though. I mean, I could try saying that. But it's fucked, man. Apply again. Alright, let's do that. Let's look that up right now. I did it online. I'll admit I applied online. Because there was an advertisement. You don't really see advertisements on them very much, but I don't know what it was for. I can't remember. Oh, look at this. Careers Home Depot. Yeah, baby. Yes, stash. Order picker. I could do that. Department supervisor. Wow. Head cashier. I can do cash. I've done cash. Vault associate. That sounds cool as fuck. Registers, scan equipment, printers, clean and maintain equipment, build professional courteous relationships with sales, audit, banks, armored car service. Oh my god, this is... Oh, Montreal. I wonder how much this pays. Driver. Technology. Yeah, they do. Wow, insane. Dude. You're actually like, giving me hope. Oh man, I don't think I can be a sales associate. I don't think I can do that. Talking with the fucking clients? Oh my god, no way. I don't know anything. Alright, let's apply. I don't know, I might have to tailor my resume. If I were to apply, I have to change my resume. It's hard. Sales floor. That's a lot of walking. That's a lot of just standing on your feet. Which is fine. Not a deal though. Okay, I'll apply after. Retail stores. Corporate. Corporate. Look at this. Yes, this is what I'm talking about. Sustainability specialist at Home Depot. Oh my god, that'd be amazing. I would be perfect for this job. What is this? This is bullshit. This is bullshit. It's like some bullshit job. Sustainability specialist. Managing data collection, review, validation of data. This is a fucking bullshit job. Execute survey follow-up. This is all compliance. Fuck you. That's what you do. You do the floor? You're on the... I thought you were... like forklift, the back. In store. Delivery, receiving. 18,000 steps a day. Holy shit, dude. I wish they show salaries. It might. I gotta do it on a website, on a browser that doesn't use ad blocker and shit. Mobile service technician. I don't know, man. It looks too... I saved it though. I might apply. I don't know though, man. Even if I freaking tailor my resume, like this is in Toronto, which is 500 kilometers away, which is like 350 miles away. So I mean, if I tailor my resume for it, I don't even know if they'd even like consider me, because it's just like sales floor. Wow, man, congrats, bro. Yeah, dude, I bet, man. you probably talk to a lot of really smart tradespeople too, I can imagine. Because if I was there and I was fucking trying to like talk to a tradesperson about some shit, like he would see through me so fucking fast. Like instantaneously. And the conversation would just be him educating me. Or her educating me. I can't bullshit that. And I get pretty upset with like dumb questions. And some people just want to talk to you. Some people just are just lonely and want to talk. It's like I don't want to do that. I get dumb questions all day. I mean, like, I'm not saying that like, you're like that now with me, you know, but you know what I mean, like at the fucking store, like they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing in their life. Like they're lost in their life, and they end up in a Home Depot asking some random ass question about their kitchen tile floor or some shit. Small talk, yeah. Especially when you have abs like Sour Stash. I'm sure a lot of people come up and talk to you. If you see his resume first, people may not actually see. I know, dude. It's so fucked, man. Like, it's so fucked. You got that too? Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, maybe just the big stores. That might be actually my hope. Just to apply to one of these big companies. You know what I mean? Obviously, you know what I mean, because you told me to do that. But, like... Or, like, Amazon management, waste management, compliance. Amazon waste management compliance. That would be... I would have the largest effect on the world with that job. And it would be the job for me. But I don't want to be a garbage man, dude. That's not my passion, man. I don't want to be a garbage man. You know why? It's not the material, it's picking up after large $1 billion companies that aren't responsible for the waste they create. And it's just fucking pissing me off so much. It's like, these motherfuckers, these are the fucking, like, slimiest of the slimiest. Creating all this toxic waste. And just want to pass on, like, the accountability. It drives me, every day, it drives me insane. I can't do it. That's not for me. You see it at your store? Oh shit, really? Yeah, I bet. You're in, like, the belly of the beast. I bet, man. And so corporate, I bet. Yeah. I've never worked in the store. Like, I've worked in, like, some... I worked like a service coordinator in a clothing store in a mall. And I've worked warehouse. I've never worked at, like, a Walmart or a Home Depot. Oh wow, insane. Insane. Wow. Yeah. And dude, the product destruction, I mentioned before. Wait, fuck it. I'll say the company. Canada Goose. You know the Canada Goose jackets, the goose jackets? What they do is they do product destruction, which means that instead of selling off the coats that they didn't sell last year at a lower value, or I don't know, donating them so like homeless people can have warm jackets, they destroy the product. So they incinerate it to keep the the rarity of the item, which is why people are getting hijacked for their Canada Goose jackets in England and shit. So they incinerate it, and it's like it's extra. Like I don't care about geese. I don't care like this. They smell. They're annoying. But like they killed they killed like a lot of geese, like a lot of animals. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it's just and just like imagine that with everything, with like drugs. The drugs, man. They would there's this like the rare disease. The rare disease is the most expensive because they create specific molecules for like $200,000 an annual yearly dose, and they're sending it to us for destruction at like I don't know, like 20 cents a kilogram incineration. And these vials are like $5,000 of medicine a vial. And we're just like destroying it for fucking cents. It's just too much. And water, the bottled water, all the expired bottled water, which is shredded. The bottles are shredded, and it just goes to the drain. Just a big waste of time and creating all this plastic waste. Oh man. I hated that job, man. I hated it. I guess I better get started. I'm going to use the washroom and I'll be back. I might smoke another.
people came to excavate them also.
Oh, okay.
They dug down in these enclosures, and now there's at least 2 sites where this is obvious. One is enclosure C, where it is said in the papers that someone roughly 6,000 to 8,000 years ago came and intentionally dug pits directly down to the 2 central pillars in enclosure C and destroyed them.
Wow.
So it was like, I don't know, this just gets my brain going.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, like did they hear in their own legends that there was this place of power, and it was like, go up on the hill and dig it up, dig up the magical circle and destroy it.
Sure, yeah.
That's interesting. In the cat enclosure, which we have never been into, I don't think it's open to the public yet, but the cat enclosure, I can't remember what enclosure letter it is, H maybe, they found evidence that a ramp was preserved in the sediment. So somebody had excavated that themselves, a ramp on which to walk down to get down to the inside of it.
Okay.
And I think those central pillars were also destroyed. Now, were they destroyed because they just fell over because they dug it up? That could be a possibility. I'm not sure, but the way it's described in the papers is that they were intentionally destroyed. You have multiple events, multiple things happening at this site, and thousands of years of occupation by people. And so there's going to be a lot more that we have to learn.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So many more to dig up. So
yeah, that's why it's so tough to look at all of these sites, because again, it's for all of them, it's thousands of years of occupation, and thousands of years of reuse, and it's like even like what land we're living on today, it's like it's been lived on before. Like we're not the first people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the other crazy thing about this, obviously, for people that might not know, is that the way that the pillars were carved was like it wasn't as if these animals and all these things on these pillars were carved into the pillars.
Yeah. They
actually removed the stone from the outside to create the to create the pictures that you see, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's like a raised relief, and in some cases high relief. But yeah, they're removing the material around what they want to show you, as opposed to cutting the image in.
Way more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mastery of
And the other thing that's kind of part of that is that, the people at the quarry need to know that you want, they need to know how much excess stone to leave on there so that you can carve something. There's this one carving of a cat or something. What do they think it is?
I thought it was a cat.
Okay.
Is it not a cat?
It's literally sticking off of the edge of the pillar by, I don't know, a foot.
I've seen that thing. Yeah.
And so the guy in the quarry that was cutting it had to know to leave this big chunk there for the artist. Yeah, now that piece is just a piece.
Yeah, it's a piece of sculpture stuck to the side of the.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And where do these stones come from? Do we know?
They're also made of limestone, and they come from nearby.
Okay.
They know where there's at least some stones still left in the quarry.
Okay.
Where they were cutting them out.
Okay.
And in Karahan Tepe, there's one on the backside of the hill. Karahan is also, Karahan is sort of on a hill, but also goes through a saddle between 2 hills. And then on the backside of this one hill, there's a humongous T-pillar, like half cut out of the rock still left.
You got to walk around it, and there's supposedly a quarry for Göbekli Tepe itself near the site, but we couldn't get in there last time we were there. We're gonna try.
Gotcha.
I'd love to get into some of the quarries in there, but
And they say that they did all this stone cutting with flint.
Okay.
The flint
chisels.
yeah, the guy that we were,
You could.
yeah,
You can do it.
It's harder with granite.
yeah. But the question goes back to like who built it and why, and so that I wanted to say on you guys were talking about the flooding and filling it in and everything. We have to remember that somebody first came along to this hill and they cut down, they sort of cleared down to the bedrock and then flattened out these circles, made these rock cut platforms, leaving the little pedestals that the central pillars are in. So that was the first thing they did. And then there would be, because it's close to the top of the hill, the only reason there was stuff to fall in is because there's this enormous midden mountain around the entire site.
Right.
And I mean, it's a huge mound. Like that's
incredible.
yeah, I can show
mind blowing
in the beginning
how
of
big this midden
the
is.
video we have here. It's looking at the midden around this. Well, here this actually shot. This is showing you this right here is a platform that doesn't have any pillars in it. Right? This would have been one of the pedestals.
This would have been like an enclosure.
Yeah, this would have been one of the enclosures. It's just empty, and it kind of sits out by itself, off away from the main site. But then you see all these sort of strange cut marks in the rock here.
Right. 2 drills.
Yeah, somebody's drilling. And then there's these 2 big holes that are full of water when we were there. And it's like, were these intentional as well? Like, were they making water sources, little pools?
There were some holes like that at Carahan.
Yes, there are at Carahan. Let's see if we can move forward here and look at this. Let me skip that. Just want to show you the walking up to the main midden mound. Here it is. So this entire hill on the left here is the midden.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes all the way out into the back. It's so huge. Carahan is awesome as well when you're looking at because you can climb, when you get up to the top of the hill, you can look down and you just see it spilling all down, and you can see T-pillars just sticking out of the tops of this in these circular patterns all down there.
That's great.
And it's also it's really interesting how I've looked at our footage from this trip and then most of the photographs and footage from any other time, and in all of those other pictures it looks like a desert. But because we got there right after this enormous flood, everything was green and there was flowers on it, everything. So it completely does not normally look like this.
That's cool.
Yeah, this is
It also made it stand out.
It did make it stand out.
It made the midden pile stand out because there's a lot of nutrients in that midden.
Okay.
It has a lot more soil. Look at the hill across the way. It's just bare bedrock sticking out.
Yeah.
So there's not very much grass, and then this hill is just this lush green color.
And so how much of it is excavated currently? It's like 5% or something.
Yeah, it's something like
Yeah,
that.
5 or 9%. Yeah, it's not much.
And what is it? Is it Pillar 43 that's the super interesting one?
Pillar 43 has the vulture. It's the vulture.
It's the vulture
Yeah.
system, yeah.
What do you guys make of that?
I like
Martin Sweatman's stuff on it. Yeah.
the analysis of it. I mean, I think that's really cool. This is kind of another thing about us is it's like we don't know what it's so hard to look at I mean, I'm looking at that animal that's carved on the side of the pillar and I'm like, oh, it's a cat. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of it, but I have the sense that that it does have meaning.
Yeah.
That's really all I can say about it. I believe that it has meaning and it meant something to the people that made it.
Right.
And they had some kind of logical progression that would say, well, this pillar needs to have this on it. And here's the significance as to why. I don't know that I'll ever find out what that was.
Yeah.
So you can see this is standard what this mound is made of. Piles of rubble, but it's obviously artificial. In other words, humans occupied this area. So lots of the stones are close to the same size. It's midden mound with some cobblestone walls mixed in. So
They
was that midden there before the main megalithic constructions were made? In other words, did they dig down through that to make it, or did that build up afterwards? That's the main question.
It has to be. I just can't imagine. It's got to be after.
Yeah.
You know, those people that are associated with the lithics are at the same time as the mortar at the bottom of the walls. So it's like,
And they would be building the walls because they're standing up these stones.
this is the thing that makes it complicated. Is that because you can only it must be at minimum this old. You can't actually get the age. So I don't know. It's
It's a crazy sight.
and you know, the other thing is we didn't get to go to the museums. We didn't get to see all of the amazing artifacts that they brought out of the site because of the flooding. So we're looking forward to seeing that. But I'm sure we're going to learn so much more in the next few years.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, the stuff that's going to be coming out of Carahan. And I think it's important to kind of that the record needs to be corrected, because it's this idea of intentional burial kind of puts the idea into people's heads that it was some kind of ceremonial, like we're going to bury this as a time capsule, we're sending a message to the future.
Everything's ceremonial. Yeah, no, you're right. Good.
It's just, we make that joke all the time. It was a temple, and it was for ceremony.
It was for ceremony.
That's it. That's all you need to know.
Because nothing that the ancient people did was logical.
Right. Yeah, nothing had a function. It was all just ceremonies, religion. The moon, the hollow moon thing outside. So
I mean, there's plenty of anomalies on the moon. I'm sure you know if you're interested in that idea, the transient lunar phenomena. So, but there's this picture of the moon, and it's this 4 billion year old steady state artifact. That it maybe it occasionally gets a new crater, but all the craters that are on it are very ancient, and it never changes. It doesn't have an atmosphere. It has no weather, right? So it's like this time capsule. But then you have TLP, the transient lunar phenomena, that people have been seeing, and there's some pretty good collections of these that where astronomers since the 1500s, just all the way back to Galileo, have been seeing stuff on them, like little lights, strange moving clouds. Now a lot of times you have to understand, like, what were they looking, what lenses were they using, what was their telescope like, was there anything in the atmosphere between them and the moon, all this kind of stuff. But a lot of times it's just like, no, somebody was seeing something strange, or craters themselves seem to not always be the same, and then there's shadows that move across it. Like, all this stuff is collected in this TLP like archive. In other words, like stuff that is not. In other words, where the moon isn't just a static object that never changes.
Yeah.
Shadows moving across, things appearing and disappearing, lights, little glowing clouds. Indications of activity. It doesn't have to be aliens or whatever. It could be internal geological processes doing stuff, like something under a crater could be outgassing, and it leaves this sort of cloud over the crater that has to dissipate into the vacuum, or maybe it crystallizes onto the edge of the crater and leaves a sort of splash mark, and then people see that for a while before it completely sublimates away.
What are some of the strangest things about the moon? I mean, that make us question, like, what's going on here? Like, I mean, so the craters are all basically the same depth, right? So no matter how big an object is, it comes smashing into the moon, and
it doesn't get deep enough.
It doesn't get deeper. It doesn't get deeper than whatever the maximum crater. They're all
like 3 kilometers or something like that.
Yeah,
they're all 3 kilometers.
They're all basically the same.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
And then the front face versus the backside are so drastically different in aspect, and so you like the front is a very, like, everyone recognizes it. It's sort of iconic. It has these huge, the seas, these dark areas that are like lava flows.
Okay.
And it's like what caused that a long time ago, and then they froze that way. But then the backside is very mountainous. It looks very different. And then the craters. Some of the experiments they did, like you were mentioning earlier in the break, like that it rang for a long time, like a bell.
Right.
So what explains that?
Right. Yeah, it was ringing. And when did we measure that? In like the 70s or something? Or
I think, didn't they?
Dropped something on it.
Yeah, they dropped they dropped. I think they dropped the engine that they used to take off.
Yeah.
It goes down, hits it, and the whole moon, because they had left seismic recorders there, and it just kept ringing. And it kept going.
Completely unexpected.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then we come up with the reason why afterwards. It's let's just fit this into something that's not going to.
Right. It's not. This is totally normal. Nothing to see here. We didn't expect it, but when it happened, it's actually not surprising, because we're thinking around. We're trying to figure out a way to make it not surprising.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. That's crazy. And then you were mentioning the size of the moon in general.
Well, so the size is interesting. There's all kinds of strange sacred numbers wrapped up in it, but also its position.
Yes.
You know, so this has to do in part with its size, but it has this orbit around the Earth that, like it was carved. You know, that it was put there on purpose. Because, like, what are the odds that it's in this place where it perfectly occults the sun? It isn't much larger than the sun when it occults it. It isn't much smaller. From our perspective, on the surface of the Earth, it appears to be the exact same size as the sun. And so when there's an eclipse, it's a perfect occultation sometimes. Like this eclipse that's coming up is going to be a perfect occultation of the sun. The one that happened the year before was the annular, where you see a ring, right? So the moon is a little bit farther away from us, so it doesn't completely cover the sun. But sometimes it's a perfect eclipse, and then that allows you to see the corona, you know, this all this stuff around the sun that you can never see with the naked eye without this device, this gigantic space device. It's like an observational tool.
And really, it's just like, what are the odds? That's what we would have. It's, again, you have all these weird odds. It's like, what are the odds that life will exist? What are the odds that intelligent life will exist? And intelligent life that we've found just so happens to be on this place with this moon that doesn't look like any of the other moons that we see anywhere. That it happens to be perfectly sized and at the right distance to do that, to blow all of our minds occasionally.
Yeah, and you can say our moon's too big, and people are like, well, there are other moons in the solar system that are as large, or maybe a little larger than our moon, but those planets that they're around are enormous. Our moon, like the size ratio between the Earth and the moon there's nothing like that anywhere else in the solar system. Mars has a couple of moons. They're little potatoes. They're not even big enough. They don't have enough mass to make themselves spherical.
And that's
Yo, Sailor Curse, what's up, man? How you doing, buddy?
Light, which speaks to the theory about it potentially being hollow. I guess,
Yes, the overall density. But then the shallowness of the crater speaks to a very hard shell. So you maybe have a high density, very strong shell, and then the rest of it's hollow. Leading to an overall low density.
Which could explain the ringing. And everything else. And wasn't there some study done that talked about the rocks on the moon being much older near the surface and much younger as you dug down lower? Or is that's something that
I haven't heard that. That's interesting. And then you have things like the Blair cuspids, like where then this is all based on photos from above, like lunar orbital camera or the Apollo orbits, and they're taking pictures looking down. But you're basically looking straight down on a surface, and you're looking at shadows, and you're looking at objects casting the shadows. And sometimes you see this very small object and it casts this incredibly long shadow, but everything else around it is casting normal length shadows, and so you're like, well, maybe this is a very tall, narrow object. But that doesn't seem like something you would normally get. And so there's a series of these, and they also appear to be they're not just randomly placed. And so people start thinking they're obelisks and they're up on the moon, and I don't know what they are, but there's some interesting stuff like that. There's also trails. There are tracks on the moon. And
can you pull those over?
Some of the times you can see that the track mark is made by at the end of it is a big rock, and so like this rock has rolled and it's left this track. But sometimes the tracks do not have an explanatory boulder. Yeah, there's some. That's a great picture of the track mark.
And you see the boulders on most of those.
What is that lake where there's this old lake bed where the rocks do this?
Racetrack Playa.
In
like
California.
Yeah.
But apparently there's a good reason.
There has been an explanation that I really like at this point. That it makes ice sails. It's really cool. But ice sails doesn't seem to be a good explanation for the moon. But yeah, the tracks are interesting, and then there's also another one that you can look at and just wonder about. There may be a perfectly good natural explanations for some of this stuff, but the splash marks that go out from some of the craters, some of these you can see with the naked eye without any assistance. Like Tycho has a lot of very bright lines that go out from the crater, and they cross a large portion of the moon. You know, so you imagine something impacting the moon, and there's going to be ejecta, an ejecta pattern. But what's weird about some of the splash lines that come out of these craters is they're not really all radial. They cross each other, you know, from the same. In other words, it doesn't look quite right. Was going very fast.
Very fast, and it still only went in 3 kilometers.
Right, it didn't make a deep hole.
Right.
Yeah, you can see the ejecta mark is enormous.
For something that rings that's, you know, very low density, like why is that going in?
And look how see this picture. It's like all the way to the left, third one down. Yes, this one. See the line, how far they go?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about crossing a third, maybe a half of the, you know, crossing an entire hemisphere there.
Right.
But they're not.
So what are those lines? Like, are those like from when it stretched?
That's the question. But you can see how they're not quite a proper radial pattern. They don't all point at the middle of the crater,
Right.
which is what you would expect. So it's still quite a mystery. Like, what are these lines?
Yeah.
Some people, I mean, in the Who Built the Moon, he's, you know, the guy is like, when he starts to go off on all the craziness at the end of it, he's saying, you know, they're mining these things, and these are machine tracks, and the tracks would last a long time. So yeah, you see them on there forever. But the reason they're not always perfectly straight from the crater is because it's machines driving around.
Okay.
I don't know what they are, but
Let's go to Mars. What do you guys think? Just your face on Mars. Any thoughts on that thing? Have you guys?
Man, I obsessed over that.
Did you?
I did. Yeah, and I was mad at the people that were just like, nah, look at it at a different time of day. It's nothing. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
That's got to be a face.
Like, what's the quick story on that thing, just so people understand what we're talking about? Because my understanding of it is that it was like that NASA took this photo and released it, and it was like, okay, here's this photo of this
Viking,
Yeah.
one of the early orbiters, Viking 1 or something.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it's like, okay, there's this thing, but that's nothing to see. They didn't think it was going to be a big deal. People, you know, but then people got super crazy interested in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so what is this? And then NASA released this image of it that was like this total Photoshop hack job of, like, you know, 13 layers of Photoshop to show this thing as being, like, you know, just a normal anomaly that happened to get picked up by the light one time. Yeah, my understanding. Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they photoshopped it.
Wait, are we bringing back the Mars face?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I just want to know if there's anything to it. I really don't know. I mean, I've seen very little on this.
I'm diving back in, boys.
But they haven't been back to it. And it's
Right. Why don't you just land in Cydonia and take a look? Yeah.
Just show us another picture. Like, just go back and take a picture of it. Like, bring the freaking rotor there. The rotor's all over the planet, like traveling everywhere,
It's like
all over the place.
circles it.
Not going to the face.
Well, they don't go there. It's like, why? Why don't you just go there? Everybody wants to see it. Look at that. 1976, 1998. Look at the difference in what they made it look like.
2001.
Well, the 2001 actually still looks like a face.
Look, that's what I'm saying. Even if there was no photoshopping, whatever, and they're just showing you another picture and saying, well, here's what it really looks like, it's still weird.
Right.
It's got this, it's in this flat plane, and this thing's just sticking out of it, and it's a very odd,
Right.
whatever it is, this feature is very strange. You should go check
You know
it out.
what we ought to do? We ought to get a picture of, like, the Black Pyramid. Isn't it called the Black Pyramid?
Which one?
It's the
on
mud
Mars?
brick one.
Oh, in Egypt?
Yeah?
Because it doesn't look like a pyramid. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a pyramid. Yes, it is.
Yes, it actually is. Yeah. Yeah, you mean because they collapse, they degrade.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
And so that it's just what occurred to me that, like, this, when you're looking at the border around the face on Mars, it's like, yeah, this is a raised platform that's kind of squarish, and then it's got some eroded stuff on top.
Yeah, and it's collapsing. It's very old.
Yeah. All right.
Well, you know, there's other things too with Mars.
I'm back on board, bro. You brought me back to the Mars base.
I want to know, why can't we get a real updated picture? Like, why won't they bring the rover back there? Like, what is going on with this thing? Because you know they Photoshop so. We know NASA, like, that's proven. We know that they Photoshop, like, all of their photos before they show us anything. And so it's like, I mean, what, like, it drives me crazy that we can't get a decent, like an explanation for this thing. And like, get close to it. Like, drive the freaking rover into its eyeballs. Like, like, why not?
What about the pyramids? Weren't there supposed to be five?
Right.
They were like five-sided.
Right near it.
Yeah, in the Cydonia region. Yeah. That's so. That's what's interesting is, again, I take it back to this guy Leonard who built the moon. The way in the book he's describing, like, he's going to NASA. He's digging through their boxes of photographs, looking at stuff, and then taking those pictures and talking to the people at NASA. Then going out and teaching kids and showing them pictures, getting them involved. Then the kids are writing letters to NASA, asking NASA, why haven't they given us an explanation for this weird thing that's in this crater? And so then you start wondering, is it people like this that is the reason NASA started airbrushing and photoshopping all their pictures? They're like, we don't want to deal with this. We're just trying to land on the moon.
Right. Yeah, could be. Yeah, I don't know.
But it seems like, why would you not want to talk about this?
Right.
I've seen, this is another explanation that's been given, like, don't you think that if NASA was finding evidence of ancient artifacts up there that they would tell everybody, because then they'd get all the funding they wanted?
Nope.
Yeah, well, clearly not.
Yeah, they don't even want to say, okay, everyone's interested in this. Let's drop the next probe nearby.
Right.
They just, that is weird.
Yeah. So it seems like they have some other incentive that's stronger than the incentive to get a lot of funding, because people think there might be ancient alien artifacts
Keep
up there.
people calm.
Yeah.
That's the whole incentive.
You
There's
think so?
nothing to see here. Like, there's nothing interesting happening anywhere in the entire galaxy. just don't worry about it, and just keep working and pumping money into the economy. That's what NASA's like. That's the whole. I mean, that's the whole. The government, the whole NASA. That's what people do. Like, that's the whole system. It's like they don't want people to to rise up and to think.
Alright, my friends, I'm going to end the stream here. It's sunny outside, so I'm probably going to play basketball and do a basketball stream outside. Probably, maybe. I just got my new phone number with data, so I'm going to use that. It's sunny outside. I'm gonna start streaming a little bit outside playing basketball. Maybe in an hour from now. Thanks for being here, though. Appreciate it big time. Stash and Toad and Sailor. Thank you very much.
To discover anything about it, it seems the more I learn about it, the more confusing it gets.
The UFO topic in general? Yeah.
And how many phenomena is it really? That's the other thing, is like, is it multiple things that, because we know so
I
little
will
about
see you
this
later.
particular, like, maybe there probably are phenomena that we just don't have any grasp on. Some of them we have
Thanks,
no
brother.
idea that there could be anything behind us that could generate it.
Thanks,
So
man.
maybe there's,
I'll be on in like an hour or so,
those
playing
things
basketball
result
outside, probably.
a lot of different things
in the
that
sun.
all kind of lumped together. So is it possible that everything paranormal, ghosts,
Thank you.
feelings, the people who have
You too.
precognition, all this